Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Please like and subscribe so I can tell more interesting stories. Now, let's get started. I remember it like it was yesterday, though. To be fair, time didn't mean much back then. No clocks, no calendars, just the sun telling us when to wake up and the moon reminding us when to sleep. But that day, that day was different. That was the day the world changed. The day I smelled something strange. It started as a faint tickle in my nose, a weird, sharp scent, like when lightning strikes a tree and the air feels wrong. It was smoky, warm, alien. I blinked awake, scratching at my tangled hair, trying to figure out why the air felt heavier, warmer, almost like the breath of something alive. At first, I thought maybe one of the old trees had fallen, or maybe the big cats were fighting again. But no, this was different. There was this strange flickering glow just past the ridge. Something that didn't belong. Something moving. Not walking, not crawling, not flying. Just dancing. Naturally. Because I'm human, and we humans are famously both curious and terrible at risk assessment, I decided to check it out. Smart maybe. Dangerous, definitely. But hey, nobody ever discovered anything by staying in their cave. As I crept closer, I noticed the air getting warmer. The strange glow painted the trees in colors I'd never seen before. Deep reds, wild oranges, flashes of yellow. It was beautiful and terrifying. Like the sky had fallen and set the earth on fire. There it was, a tree. Or, well, what used to be a tree. Now, it was wrapped in these wild, flickering things, long tongues of light that snapped and hissed and popped. It was alive. No, not alive. But it felt alive. Like it had its own breath, its own mind. I crouched behind a bush, eyes wide, heart pounding. I should have run. A smarter version of me would have. But nah, I was frozen half in terror, half in awe. Here's a weird fact for you. Scientists today say that humans aren't the only animals who are fascinated by fire. Some birds in Australia actually use fire. They drop burning sticks in dry grass to flush out prey. Yeah. Birds. Literal arsonists with feathers. Who knew? Anyway, as I watched, something incredible happened. One of the smaller branches broke off, hit the ground, and suddenly the fire spread. Fast. The dry grass caught instantly. Flames raced in every direction, eating everything they touched. Trees, shrubs, little critters that were way too slow. My heart shot into my throat. I scrambled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. This wasn't just some pretty glowing thing. This was a monster. A hungry, unstoppable monster. But here's the thing. Even as my brain screamed, run, something else whispered, no, stay, look, learn, because there was something more than fear here. There was possibility. Historians still debate whether the first humans discovered fire accidentally by stumbling upon natural wildfires, or whether some absolute mad lad decided to poke at lightning-struck trees until something happened. But all I know is that on that day, I wasn't thinking about history. I was thinking about survival. And maybe curiosity. The heat pressed against my skin, but it was kind of nice. Weirdly nice. Like the sun, but closer. Warmer. More controllable. Well, okay, maybe not yet. I noticed the animals. They were running. Birds exploded from trees. Deer stampeded through the grass. Even the saber-toothed cats, those overgrown, angry house cats with knives for teeth, were getting the heck out of there. If they were scared, maybe I should be too. But then, something caught my eye. A pile of bones. Not old bones. Fresh ones. Half charred, half cooked. A rabbit or something like it. I edged closer, nostrils flaring. And let me tell you, it smelled good. Wait, did I just think that? Yeah, I did. It smelled really good. And that was when the first dangerous thought entered my head. Could I eat that? I know sounds ridiculous now, but you have to remember, up until that day, everything we ate was raw. Raw meat, raw roots, raw berries, sometimes raw bugs. Cooking wasn't a thing. Refrigerators weren't a thing. Fire wasn't a thing. But that smell, oh, that smell. It was mouth-watering in a way I didn't know was possible. The fire was scary, but what if it wasn't just a destroyer? What if it was something else, a tool? The wind shifted, and a gust of hot air blasted my face. Sparks danced dangerously close, forcing me to stumble back. My instincts screamed again. Run, dummy! But my feet refused. Something deeper held me there. There was something hypnotic about it. The way the flames curled around the wood, the way it popped and hissed, like it was telling a story, or maybe daring me to come closer. Funny thing is, humans today still do this. Ever sat around a campfire just staring, zoning out? Yeah, same thing. Our brains are wired for it. Scientists actually found that watching fire lowers blood pressure. It relaxes us. Even now. Weird, right? But back then, it was anything but relaxing. A loud crack jolted me. Another branch fell. More flames. More smoke. I coughed, eyes stinging. The fire was spreading fast. Too fast. And yet, I stayed. I watched. Because something deep in my gut knew this wasn't just the end of something. It was the beginning of everything. I should have left. Any rational person, well, if rationality existed back then, would have hightailed it out of there. But nope. There I was, crouched behind a bush, like an idiot, watching this strange living thing eat the world. It was beautiful. Terrifying, but beautiful. The flames danced like they were performing some kind of ancient ritual, swaying and flickering, bending, but never breaking. The colors were impossible. Deep golds, sharp reds, almost liquid blues in the center. It wasn't just light, it was alive. It had a personality, a voice, a hunger. Every instinct told me this thing was dangerous. The same way you look at a saber-toothed cat and just know it can ruin your whole week. My brain screamed, "Stay back! That thing's worse." And yet, my feet didn't move. As the fire spread along the fallen branch, I caught myself leaning closer, closer than I had any business being. My eyes watered. My skin prickled and still. Closer. That's when curiosity did battle with terror inside my head. A proper heavyweight match. On one side, dude, you've got to leave or you're going to be cooked like that rabbit. On the other, but what even is this thing? What makes it move like that? Can you touch it? Can you hold it? Spoiler alert, the answer is no. No, you cannot hold it, but we'll get to that. The crackling was hypnotic. I found myself whispering, "What are you?" Not that the fire answered, but honestly, I half expected it to. It felt aware, a creature made of light and heat. Here's a fun fact most people don't know. Fire isn't actually a thing. It's not an object. It's a process, a chemical reaction, combustion. You don't have fire. You cause it, which is exactly why it's so slippery. You can't grab it. You can't hold it. But you can start it, if you're clever enough. As I stood there watching, another question hit me. Where did it come from? I looked around, then up. The tree. It was split down the center, scarred, burned, and at the top, charred black. The answer was obvious even to my prehistoric brain. Lightning. That terrible sky spear that sometimes hits the ground with a bang, loud enough to make your ears bleed. Lightning had birthed this thing. Historians still debate whether fire was discovered from lightning volcanic eruptions or wildfires sparked by friction during storms. Personally, on that day, I didn't care about academic debates. I was staring at the aftermath of nature's biggest oops. The flames leapt higher, with every passing second climbing from branch to branch. Sparks flew into the sky like tiny, angry stars. The heat grew more intense. I backed up, rubbing my arms goosebumps from both fear and fascination. Suddenly, there was movement to my left. I ducked, heart thumping. Was it a predator? Another human? Nope, it was a bear. A very grumpy, very smoky-looking bear, barreling through the brush like a boulder with fur. Its eyes were wide, wild. It wasn't hunting, it was fleeing. And if a bear was scared, yeah, you know it's bad. But then something weird happened. The bear stopped, just for a second. It turned toward the fire, sniffed. And this is the part that still baffles me. It sat down, right at the edge of the heat, close enough to warm its fur, but far enough not to get toasted. It was enjoying the warmth. I blinked. No way, I muttered. No way this bear gets it before I do. It sat there for a moment, then snorted, turned, and lumbered away. But the image stuck. Something primal clicked in my brain. If the bear figured it out, maybe I could too. The terror started to fade. Not vanish, mind you. I wasn't stupid. But beneath the fear was this pull. This sense that I was looking at something more than danger. Something useful. I edged closer. The grass was singed, blackened. My feet crunched over it, sending up tiny puffs of smoke. I kept one hand ready to bolt, but took step after step. I could feel the heat on my face, like standing too close to the sun. It wasn't entirely unpleasant. In fact, after a lifetime of cold nights, damp caves, and shivering under leaves, it was kind of wonderful. My eyes caught movement, tiny bugs ants probably skittering away from the edges of the flames. Little creatures knew better than I did what this thing could do. And yet I couldn't stop watching. Did I mention humans are terrible at assessing risk? Yeah, we've always been like this. I reached out just a little, close enough to feel the heat radiate off a burning stick, but not close enough to touch it. The flames hissed, snapping at the air like angry spirits. It was then I noticed something even stranger. The fire moved. It climbed. It ate. It followed rules, sure, but it wasn't random. Wherever there was dry wood, it reached for it. Whenever something fell, it surged toward it. Hungry, consistent, predictable in its own way. There's an ongoing debate among scientists whether early humans understood this predictability immediately or if it took generations. But looking back, I think we knew. Somewhere deep in our bones we knew. Still, part of me shook with fear. What if it turned on me? What if the wind shifted? What if it grew too big? But part of me also wondered, what if it didn't? What if I could figure out how to keep it small, keep it safe, keep it mine? And just like that, terror and curiosity became two sides of the same coin. I wasn't just a scared animal anymore. I was something else, something new. I was human. So there I was, staring, breathing, sweating, debating every single life choice that had led me to this exact moment, face to face with a living creature made entirely of light and heat. And because curiosity is a disease that humans have never recovered from, I reached out. Yep, I did the dumb thing. I spotted this thick, half-burned branch lying at the edge of the flames. One end was glowing, but the other looked kinda safe. You know, just lightly scorched. Nothing serious. Totally fine. Probably. Maybe. Fingers trembling. I crouched lower, inching forward, like I was sneaking up on a sleeping lion. I reached out, grabbed the safer-looking end of the branch, and immediately yanked my hand back. Hot, hot, hot. It was, and this may shock you, very hot. Blisters instantly bubbled on two of my fingers. I shoved my hand into the dirt, trying to cool it off, muttering every prehistoric curse word I could think of, which, granted, was mostly just grunts. Historians still debate whether early humans first learned to interact with fire through accidental burns like this, or whether they observed animals interacting safely first. Judging by my own experience, yeah, definitely burns first. It hurt. A lot. But weirdly, it wasn't enough to scare me away. I sat back, sucking on my fingers, watching the flames with this dumb grin on my face. Because despite the pain, something clicked in my brain. This thing was dangerous, sure. But it could be touched. Well, sort of. It wasn't some magical, untouchable force. It was real. It had rules. It had limits. And if it had limits, maybe, just maybe, it could be controlled. Q, the world's first terrible idea that somehow also became the best idea ever. What if I took some with me? I glanced around, searching for something safer, something less finger-melting. And there it was, a cluster of dry, leafy sticks just beyond the burn line. I grabbed a few, held one close to the edge of the fire, and watched in absolute awe as the tip caught. Tiny, hesitant flames crawled up the dry bark like newborn animals learning to walk. It was beautiful, terrifying, powerful. And then the wind blew. Whoosh! The flame vanished, just gone. Wait, what? I blinked, staring at the stick. Just a thin trail of smoke left behind. The fire on the ground was still going strong, but my little handheld experiment had failed spectacularly, which led me to discover one of fire's worst personality traits. It's picky. Give it the wrong fuel, the wrong conditions, and it just gives you the prehistoric middle finger and dies out. I tried again. This time, I grabbed a thicker stick, one with some resin in it. I didn't know it was resin back then, obviously. All I knew was it was the sticky kind. It smelled different, more oily. I shoved the tip into the flames, waited, and boom, it caught. Not just a flicker, a full, healthy little fire on the end of my stick. I pulled it back, holding it like a torch. It felt insane, like holding lightning, like wielding a piece of the sun. I laughed. Honest to goodness laughed. Probably sounded a little unhinged. But can you blame me? I was a caveman holding a piece of fire. That's basically the Stone Age version of finding a USB stick with Wi-Fi. Of course, it didn't last long. The flame ate through the stick faster than I expected, forcing me to drop it before it burned my hand. But for a moment, for one glorious moment, I held it. Fire. Here's something most people never think about. Fire isn't solid. You can't grab it, store it, or carry it like you would water or food. It's a process, a chain reaction. Keep feeding it and it lives. Starve it and it dies. Learning that was, well, let's just say it involved a lot of trial and error, mostly error. A lot of burned fingers, singed hair, and one very unfortunate incident where I accidentally set my own foot wrappings on fire. Yeah, I didn't walk right for a week after that, but the knowledge was priceless. I started experimenting. I dragged a few larger branches over, shoving them toward the main fire. It worked. They caught quickly, sending up these satisfying crackles and pops. I couldn't help but grin, rubbing my burned fingers against my leg as I watched the flames grow. And that's when something truly strange happened. I realized I liked the sound of fire, the way it whispered, the way it sang. It felt cozy, safe, in a weird, deeply ironic way, considering it had just tried to cook me 5 minutes earlier. Modern researchers say this is hardwired into us now. Watching fire lowers stress, calms the nervous system, even releases dopamine, the brain's little happy chemical. Basically, it's prehistoric Netflix. Anyway, back then, it was more than entertainment. It was survival. The more I stared, the more possibilities opened up. Warmth on cold nights, protection from predators, maybe even cooking that delicious-smelling rabbit I'd seen earlier. But that was for later. For now, the goal was simple: figure out how to keep it alive. And that, my friends, was the start of a whole new chapter in being human. A chapter where curiosity burned just as brightly as the fire in front of me. I sat there staring at the flames, fingers still throbbing, hair smelling like, well, like regret. But I couldn't stop watching. Something about fire was hypnotic. It danced, it crackled, it breathed. I mean, seriously, it breathed. You could hear it inhale with every whoosh of the wind and exhale in pops and snaps when it ate through dry wood. The heat was intense, but not unbearable. At least if you kept a respectful distance, which I was quickly learning was non-negotiable. Lean in too close and poof, you're the world's first toasted marshmallow, minus the marshmallow part. But the warmth, oh the warmth. After a lifetime of shivering under damp leaves, mud-streaked animal skins, and whatever sad excuse for shelter we could throw together, this was luxurious. Like the universe had decided, hey, here's central heating. You're welcome. I held my hands out cautiously, feeling the sting of my earlier burn, but also the gentle embrace of the heat. It was the first time I realized this wasn't just dangerous. It was comfort. And that's when my stomach grumbled, loudly. The kind of growl that made nearby birds scatter. Right, the rabbit. I shuffled back to the spot where the charred pile of bones still sat from earlier. Not much left now, just some crispy bits. I crouched, sniffed, then winced. Burnt. Completely. Basically prehistoric charcoal. Definitely not edible. But the smell. Oh man, the smell still haunted me. Smoky, savory, rich. It was like the air itself was flavored. At that moment, a thought hit me so hard, I actually said it out loud. What if we could do this? On purpose. I wasn't the only one thinking it. Around the fire, slowly but surely, others from my little group were creeping closer. Eyes wide, jaws slack. The bravest one, a guy named Burrow, big hairy, with the intellectual curiosity of a curious raccoon, leaned in, poked the ground near the flames with a stick, and then yanked his hand back like he'd just poked a snake. Hot, he grunted. Yeah. No kidding, I replied, blowing on my blistered fingers. Here's an odd fact for you. Anthropologists have found that the earliest evidence of controlled fire dates back nearly 1 million years. Charred bones, blackened stones, and ancient hearths buried deep in caves. But whether those fires were tamed on purpose or stumbled upon, well, historians still debate that. Back at our little accidental discovery site, the learning curve was steep. We poked, we prodded, we tried feeding the fire leaves spoiler terrible fuel. It smoked us half to death. We tried damp logs, also's bad. But dry branches, oh yeah, those were the ticket. The more it burned, the more we realized something wild the fire needed us. Without fresh wood, it flickered, whimpered, and eventually died. It was like a pet. A very hungry, very dangerous pet. Or maybe a toddler. A toddler with a flamethrower. But that realization changed everything. This wasn't just a freak of nature. It was something we could work with. Bureau figured out pretty quick that sitting close kept you warm. But sitting too close singed your leg hair right off. I learned that firsthand when I shifted a little too far forward. and suddenly smelled something suspiciously crispy. Is that me? I muttered, slapping at my leg. Yep, definitely me. Cue the first ever documented case of someone roasting their own kneecap. But the bigger realization came when the sun started setting. Normally, night was terrifying. You couldn't see. Every sound was a predator. Every shadow was something with teeth. And the cold. The cold was merciless. But as dusk rolled in, the fire didn't fade. If anything, it glowed brighter, warm, inviting, protective. The wolves kept their distance. So did the big cats. The crackling the light, it pushed back the darkness in a way nothing else ever had. And we knew. We absolutely knew. This wasn't just luck. This was power. Historians argue over whether fire gave early humans the edge over other species, or whether it was language tools or social bonds. But sitting there watching that fire hum against the blackness of night, I can tell you, it was this. Fire changed everything. Even the bugs stayed away. Well, except the moths. They're weird. Even then, they were dive-bombing straight into the flames like tiny suicidal daredevils. At some point, I grabbed another stick, the kind that burned long but didn't flame up too quickly. I waved it around experimentally. The glowing tip left streaks of light in the air, like I was painting on the darkness. Burrow saw me and grinned. Magic, he said. I grinned back. Yeah, magic. Of course, the next step was obvious. Cooking. Not that we knew it yet, but the idea was there. If the fire could roast a rabbit accidentally, what if we did it on purpose? Cue the next experiment. One of the others, a scrappy, sharp-eyed kid named Luma, dragged over a fat lizard that had been unlucky enough to wander too close earlier. She looked at me, then at the fire, then back at me. Food, she asked. I nodded. Maybe. She tossed it on the edge of the flames. Cue smoke. Cue smell. Cue the most chaotic 10 minutes of everyone yelling, waving sticks, trying to keep the thing from either burning to a crisp or escaping half-cooked. Eventually, we figured it out. Pull it back from the flames. Let the heat do the work, not the fire itself. When we finally tasted it, smoky, warm, soft inside, but crispy on the outside, it was life-changing. I mean, okay, it still had a hint of oops too burnt, but compared to raw meat, it was heaven. It didn't just taste better, it felt better, easier to chew, easier to digest. Our bodies practically sighed in relief, and right there under that night sky, surrounded by stars, predators, and the unknown, we realized something profound. This wasn't just survival. This was the beginning of civilization. Of course, the universe wasn't about to let us enjoy our newfound miracle without making us work for it. Because as it turns out, fire is ridiculously high maintenance. Yeah, nobody tells you this part. Fire is basically the neediest roommate you'll ever have. Feed it constantly, give it space, don't smother it, don't let it starve, and heaven forbid you breathe on it wrong. Otherwise, gone. Just like that. That night, after stuffing ourselves with slightly overcooked lizard and basking in the glorious warmth, we tried to figure out how to make it last until morning. Being Bureau tried to pile a massive log right on top of the flames. The fire didn't appreciate that. It sputtered, coughed, then promptly died. Just gone. Dead silence. We all sat there blinking as the cold immediately wrapped around us like an unwelcome blanket. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled as if it was mocking us. Nice fire you had there. Shame if something happened to it. Oops, Burrow muttered, scratching his beard. Cue panic. Everyone scrambled to the last embers, blowing on them, desperately, tossing dry leaves, sticks, anything we could find. Poof, flicker, spark. A tiny flame popped back up. Victory. But then, poof, gone again. Turns out, fire isn't just picky, it's petty. Historians still debate whether early humans figured out how to maintain fire before learning how to start it from scratch. Frankly, based on our performance that night, yeah, keeping it alive was way harder than anyone ever admits. I spent most of the night on my hands and knees, feeding in dry twigs, one by one, like some sort of flame whisperer. Every time the fire looked like it might give up, I'd whisper, "No, no, no, stay with me, buddy," like I was trying to resuscitate a dying goldfish. At one point, a gust of wind blew in, sending sparks into Burrow's hair. He yelped, flailing around like a deranged ostrich, while the rest of us burst out laughing. "Fire bites," Luma giggled. "Yeah, but it also hugs," I shot back, scooting closer to the warm glow. But the real fun came the next morning, because just as we were getting the hang of keeping the fire alive, someone else noticed. A rival group. People we knew. People who, until now, had been about as friendly as a sack of angry snakes. They showed up at the edge of the clearing, half a dozen of them. Wide-eyed, mouths hanging open. And let me tell you, they were not subtle. One of them whispered, way too loudly, "It's still here." They kept it. All night. Another jabbed him in the ribs. "Shut up. They'll hear you." "Yeah, no kidding," I muttered, standing up and folding my arms. Now remember, this was a time before property rights, before patents, before the concept of, "Hey, don't steal my stuff." But the message was pretty clear. They wanted it. Bad. Bureau grunted, glaring at them. Luma grabbed a stick and poked the fire dramatically, as if to say, "Ours. Back off." The leader of the rival group, let's call him Gruck, because he looked like a Gruck, stepped forward and tried to play it cool. "Nice, glowing thing," he said, scratching his head. "Mind if we, borrow it?" "Borrow it," I snorted. "You gonna bring it back?" He blinked, maybe. "Yeah, no. Here's an odd fact for you. Some birds, specifically the aptly named firehawks in Australia, are known to carry fire. They pick up burning sticks and drop them elsewhere to spread fires and flush out prey. Literal flying arsonists, nature's chaos agents. And looking at Gruck and his gang, well, they weren't much different. They circled slowly, trying to get close without looking too obvious. One guy casually tripped near the fire hands, reaching just a bit too far toward one of the burning sticks. Luma was faster. She smacked his hand away with her own stick. "No," she snapped. Gruck tried to negotiate. "Come on, share. We're neighbors." Burrow crossed his arms. "No. Cousins. No. Friend. Definitely no." "Fine," Gruck huffed. "We'll just make our own." There was a beat of silence. Then the entire clearing burst out laughing. Gruck scowled. "What's so funny?" "Oh, good luck with that," I chuckled. "Go ahead. Show us how it's done." Because here's the thing. We had no idea how to make it from scratch. We barely knew how to keep it alive, rubbing sticks together, smacking rocks. We'd tried that before. All it ever got us was splinters, bruises, and a deep sense of existential failure. But Gruck didn't know that. He stormed off with his gang, muttering something about sticks and fire, and they think they're so smart. As soon as they disappeared into the woods, I sighed. They're totally gonna come back and try to steal it, right? "Oh, for sure," Luma nodded. Burrow scratched his chin. "We need a plan." So that's what we did. We came up with the world's first ever fire protection plan. Step 1. Move the fire. Not too far, just to a hidden spot, behind some rocks, where it wouldn't be visible from the trail. Step 2. Assign someone to babysit it at all times. Step 3. Build a pile of extra fuel nearby just in case. It worked. Mostly. For a while. But deep down, we all knew. We couldn't hide it forever. Sooner or later, someone, whether it was Gruck, a hungry bear, or just the wind, was going to take it away. And that's when the scariest, most exciting thought crossed my mind. What if we could make our own? That thought, thought wouldn't let go. What if we could make our own fire? It echoed in my head like a drumbeat, louder than the crackle of the flames, louder than the whispers of the wind, louder than the snoring of Bureau, who'd passed out next to the fire after a heroic battle against a chunk of smoked lizard that was apparently tougher than expected. But here's the problem. None of us had the slightest clue how. Fire had always been something that happened lightning, lava, dry grass, and angry weather doing their thing. Never something you just created on purpose. Still, the more we stared at it, the more we started to believe it might be possible. Fire seemed to like certain things dry. Wood, oily sticks, wind when it was gentle, but not when it was wild. It had rules. And if it had rules, maybe those rules could be learned. Okay, I announced, clapping my hands together. Let's try. Bureau blinked at me. Try what? Make one. From scratch. Our own fire. Bureau squinted, frowned, and then gave the world's most uncertain nod. Okay. Luma grinned. Yes. We gathered a pile of sticks. Thin ones, thick ones, dry ones, bendy ones. The whole forest was basically our hardware store. Our brilliant plan. Well, step one, rub them together. Yeah, revolutionary stuff. I grabbed 2 sticks, set, one on the ground, pressed the other across it, and started rubbing like my life depended on it. Nothing. Faster. Still nothing. Even faster. My hands started to burn before the sticks did. Splinters stabbed my palms. Sweat dripped down my face. My arms felt like wet noodles. Then, smoke. Aha, I yelled. Look, smoke. Everyone crowded in. It's working. Except, no. No, it wasn't. Because a breeze hit, the smoke vanished, and the little ember we thought we saw turned out to be a crumb of ash that blew away like it was mocking us personally. Burrow tried next. He opted for the smash it into submission method, grabbed 2 rocks, and just started pounding them together like he was tenderizing a very disappointing steak. Fire now, he asked between hits. No, Burrow. Still no. Historians still debate whether fire by friction or fire from flint came first. Both require ridiculous amounts of patience and skill. And let me tell you, prehistoric me had neither. Not yet. At one point, Burrow smacked the rocks together so hard, a tiny spark flew out. All of us gasped. Did you see that? Luma shrieked. Do it again. Burrow squinted. Didn't see. Try. Clack. Nothing. Clack, clack, nothing. Clack, 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 clack. Psst. Another tiny spark. Oh, quick. I scrambled, tossing a pile of dry grass under the spot. Burrow clacked the stones again. Spark. The grass smoked. Then poof. Gone. Dead. Like fire itself was standing behind us, arms crossed, shaking its head. Amateurs. It was around that time that Gruck and his merry band of fire thieves returned. And yeah, they were not here to ask nicely this time. They came stomping into our clearing like a bunch of toddlers who had been told they couldn't have more snacks. We want the fire, Gruck announced. Not yours, I shot back, folding my arms. Gruck grinned. Then we take. Luma, bless her chaotic little soul, immediately grabbed a burning stick and held it out like a sword. Back off. And I gotta say, nothing, and I mean nothing, makes someone reconsider their life choices faster than realizing they're on the wrong end of a flaming stick. Gruck flinched, but then something shifted in his face. He grinned wider. You don't know how to make more, do you? He said. I blinked. What? You're scared? He sneered. Scared we'll take it, because you can't make more. Well, there it was. He wasn't wrong, and he knew it. It was a standoff. Our little group circled the fire, holding sticks like weapons. Gruck's gang paced just out of reach. Nobody made the first move. The tension was thick enough to club someone with. Then the wind shifted, a strong gust. Embers blew toward Gruck's group. A few landed in the dry grass near their feet. They yelped, stumbling back. And then, one of the embers caught just a tiny flicker. Gruck's eyes widened. His entire group stared. Bureau gasped. "It's making more." Everyone froze. Watching, the ember glowed, smoked, then flame. It was tiny, barely bigger than a candle, but it was real. Fire. New fire. Gruck let out a whoop so loud it scared half the birds out of the trees. "We did it. We did it." "No, you didn't," I snapped. "The wind did." "Same thing." He grinned, scooping up the burning grass with a stick. Luma crossed her arms. "That doesn't count." "Does to me," Gruck shrugged. And just like that, the fire wasn't ours anymore. It wasn't theirs. It was everybody's. Because if fire could jump from one place to another, if the wind could carry it, maybe it didn't belong to anyone. Or maybe it belonged to all of us. Even as Gruck and his crew danced away with their little flame, part of me wasn't even mad. Because the truth was, fire wanted to spread. That's what it does. The only real question left was, could we make it spread when we wanted? That, my friends, was the challenge we were about to face. The next few days were chaotic, fun, terrifying, a little bit smokier than anyone would prefer, honestly. Fire had officially gone viral. Every group for miles knew about it. You couldn't walk 10 steps without seeing smoke in the distance, little columns rising into the sky, like prehistoric Wi-Fi signals saying, "Hey, we've got fire too." Gruck's gang figured out how to keep their fire alive for a while. Another group, down by the river, tried copying them, but accidentally dropped their burning branch into the water. Gone. Just like that. The look on their faces, priceless. And me, I became obsessed, not just with having fire, but with making it. Because yeah, stealing fire from a lightning tree is cool. Borrowing it from a neighbor, sure. But knowing how to call it from nothing, that was power. Real power. So I got to work. I studied the fire like it was a living creature. Noticed what it liked, what it didn't. Dry sticks. Good. Wet ones. Nope. Thin fibrous bark. Excellent for getting started. Big logs. Only useful after the fire was already strong. And I noticed something else. When Bureau had smashed those rocks together, the sparks had hit a certain kind of stone. One that was gray, kind of shiny, rough, but brittle. Flint. Though, of course, back then we didn't call it that. We just called it the sharp one that hurts when you step on it. So I grabbed 2 pieces, sat down, took a deep breath. Clack. Nothing. Clack, clack, spark. Just one. Tiny. Come on. I scraped instead of smashing. Slid one stone hard against the other fast, like I was trying to saw the air. Psst. A shower of sparks. I gasped, dropped them onto a pile of dry moss and shredded bark. "Smoke. Please, please, please," I whispered, leaning down, blowing gently. And then, pop. A tiny flicker. Just a baby flame. Barely alive. My heart nearly exploded out of my chest. Yes, yes, I guarded that flame like it was my own child. Fed it twigs, then sticks, then a bigger branch. It grew, roared, came alive. Bureau came sprinting over. "You did it. You made it." Luma screamed, jumping up and down. "It's ours. We don't need the sky fire anymore." We danced. We howled. Somewhere in the distance, even the wolves probably went, "What the heck is wrong with them?" Here's something funny. Modern scientists say mastering fire was one of the biggest leaps in human evolution. It led to cooked food, which made digestion easier, which made our brains grow bigger. Fire wasn't just warmth. It was the fuel for civilization itself. And standing there watching flames I felt it. This was more than survival. This was the start of everything. Of course, the moment didn't stay peaceful for long. Gruck showed up. Again. This guy had the persistence of a cockroach and the charm of wet socks. He stomped into our clearing, saw our fresh blazing fire, and his jaw dropped. Wait, you made another one? Yep, I grinned. From nothing. How his eyes darted to our pile of stones, the shredded bark, the glowing embers. He wasn't dumb. Not entirely. Bureau folded his arms. Trade. Gruck blinked. Trade, Luma grinned. Yeah, you give us something. We show you how. And just like that, the first barter system was born. No money, no banks, no interest rates. Just pure, delicious prehistoric capitalism. Gruck squinted. What you want? I tapped my chin. Deer hide. Good one. And that basket your people make. The watertight one. He groaned. Fine. We shook hands well more, like grunted at each other, and then showed him, step by step. Stones, moss dry sticks. Blow, feed, grow. Gruck's eyes lit up as his own flame took shape. He actually laughed. We are fire makers. No, I corrected. We are fire masters. There was something else too, something deeper. The fire brought people together. Not just our group, but everyone. At night, you could look across the valley and see little dots of orange glowing like stars on the ground. Families, tribes, friends, enemies, no longer huddled in the dark, no longer hiding from the cold, no longer helpless. The predators. They stayed away now. Fire scared them. The wolves, the saber-toothed cats, even the bears learned to keep their distance. The nights became safer anyway. Still plenty of things that could go wrong. We were still hairless apes with rocks after all. But now, we had something else. Something the world had never seen before. Control, power, possibility. Historians still debate whether fire was the single greatest invention of all time. But sitting there watching my people laugh, eat, and share stories around the flames, I knew the answer. Yes, absolutely yes. And as the sparks floated into the sky, as the fire hummed like a heartbeat, I leaned back, smiled, and whispered to the night, everything's about to change. And so, that was the day everything changed. You know, looking back now, it feels strange to think there was ever a time when we didn't have fire. A time when the darkness owned the night. When the cold crept into our bones. When predators circled just beyond where we could see. But that day, the day we stared into the glow, the day we reached out, burned our fingers, sure but refused to let go. That was the day we stopped being just another scared animal huddling under trees. We became something else. Fire didn't just give us warmth. It gave us safety. It gave us community. It gave us time to sit together around the flames, to talk, to laugh, to wonder. It turned night from something to fear into something comforting, even beautiful. It fed us, literally. Cooked food made us stronger, healthier, smarter. Our bodies changed. Our brains grew. Our stories got longer. And those sparks, oh, they didn't just stay in the fire. They spread into ideas, into tools, into art, into everything that would come next. And yeah, we singed a few eyebrows along the way. Set a few things on fire that probably shouldn't have been. But that's just being human. So now, whenever you stare into a campfire or light a candle, or even flick on a stove, you're staring into the same miracle, the same ancient promise, the same wild, beautiful thing that changed us forever. And somewhere deep in the flicker of those flames, if you listen closely, you can still hear it whisper. This is where it all began.